What's up, everyone? Today we're going to take a close look at Raiders rookie center Jackson Paris-Johnson. Specifically, we'll break down his performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have to say, there's a strong chance that Paris-Johnson could become one of the best centers in the NFL for a long time. Based on what we've seen, he might already be a top 3 or top 4 center. His tape against the Buccaneers is really impressive, so let's dive in and analyze it. We're starting with a key play early in the game, just the third snap. On this play, Lavonte David from the Buccaneers gets to the quarterback. Some people blame Paris-Johnson for not reacting quickly enough, but let's look at the bigger picture. The Buccaneers used a clever defensive strategy called a simulated pressure. It's a blitz designed to confuse the offense. Technically, they only sent 5 defenders, but they created a situation where one guy came through completely unblocked. The Raiders' offensive line struggled to keep up with this fast-paced play. Here's what happened. DJ Glaze was in a one-on-one matchup, but when a defensive end dropped back into coverage, Glaze needed to switch and take on Dylan Parham's man. Parham, in turn, had to pick up someone else, freeing Paris-Johnson to block another defender. This all had to happen in seconds, but the Raiders couldn't adjust quickly enough. To make things tougher, Vita Vea applied extra pressure by pinning Paris-Johnson's arm, which slowed him down just enough to disrupt the play. This is why having a mobile quarterback is so important in today's NFL. Plays like this show how smart defensive designs can cause chaos, even against talented players like Paris-Johnson. When a defender comes in unblocked, the quarterback has to react fast, ideally by outrunning the defensive tackle and escaping to the left. Avoiding a sack in moments like these is crucial. Now, was this particular sack Jackson Paris-Johnson's fault? I don't think so. The real issue seems to be a lack of speed and coordination among the offensive line as a whole. While Paris-Johnson isn't slow, some of his teammates struggled. DJ Glaze, for example, has potential, but as a rookie, he still has a lot to learn. Dylan Parham also looked a bit slow on this play, and Jordan Meredith might be someone the Raiders need to replace soon. Let's look at another play involving Paris-Johnson. He was penalized for an illegal blindside block, but honestly, it's a questionable call. Johnson barely made contact with the defender. It was more of a light tap than a hit. The penalty cost the Raiders 15 yards and wiped out a gain of 15 yards. That's a 30-yard swing in the wrong direction. To be fair, penalties have been a recurring issue for Paris-Johnson this season. He needs to improve his discipline and play with cleaner technique to avoid these costly mistakes. That said, Johnson also has some dominant moments that showcase his talent. Take this play, for example. He completely clears out number 96, creating a clean pocket for the quarterback and opening up a passing lane. Plays like this are rare and highlight just how strong and skilled Johnson is. One of these moments led to a fantastic one-handed catch by Brock Bowers, another phenomenal rookie. It was a great team effort, but it all started with Paris-Johnson making his block. On another snap, he took on a defensive tackle lined up in the one technique position and completely shut him down. Johnson's ability to dominate like this is what makes him such an exciting player to watch. This is what top-level play looks like. Check out the movement Jackson Paris-Johnson creates here. As soon as he makes contact with number 96, it's like 96 gets lifted and pushed out of the play completely. That's raw power and strength. Paris-Johnson isn't just blocking, he's dominating. Speaking of power, let's talk about what he does against Vita Vea. Vea is one of the strongest defensive linemen in the NFL, but Johnson handles him like it's nothing. Watch as he mirrors Vea's movements perfectly. Vea tries a double hand swipe to break free, but Johnson's hand placement is spot on and he shuts it down. Then he just moves Vea out of the way. That's incredible technique and physicality from Paris-Johnson. Now look at this play against a linebacker. As soon as Johnson makes contact, he drives the guy way out of position. Sure, it's a linebacker, so it's easier than blocking a defensive lineman, but the amount of movement Johnson creates is still super impressive. What stands out about Johnson is not just his strength, but how he keeps his feet moving. He doesn't stop until his opponent is completely out of the play. That's a big reason why the Raiders' run game looks so much better now. Earlier in the season, when Andre James was in the lineup, there wasn't enough movement on the interior line. Defenders weren't being pushed off the ball, and that made it harder to create running lanes. Compare that to Johnson's play. He doesn't just seal defenders off. He drives them 6, 7, 8, sometimes even 10 yards downfield. This is the kind of effort and impact that transforms an offense. One thing that stands out about Jackson Paris-Johnson is how he opens up huge gaps for the running game. Check out this play where Sincere McCormick picks up nearly 30 yards on 3rd and 1. That's the result of Johnson creating a wide running lane with his blocking. Now let's talk about Johnson's physicality. Watch this quick double team move where he helps out on number 90, gives Villa a solid hit with the guard, and then quickly releases. That hit, nasty, in the best way possible. There's been some talk in the NFL about Johnson's style of play being too physical. Whether it's officials or league insiders, some say he could get flagged for unnecessary penalties, especially when leading with his helmet. On plays like this, you can see what they mean. Johnson often uses his helmet to deliver powerful blocks, and while it's not illegal here, it's something to watch moving forward. Personally, I love this kind of physicality. Look at this next play. Johnson absolutely crushes number 27. That's clean, tough football, and it's impressive. Few offensive linemen can make blocks like this. Players like Quentin Nelson come to mind, but even in that elite category, not many can dominate like Johnson does. For comparison, look at Dylan Parham on the same play. He goes up against a linebacker but doesn't have the same impact. He makes contact but doesn't take the guy to the ground. Meanwhile, Johnson slams number 27 to the turf. That's the difference Johnson brings to the Raiders' offensive line. As for Jordan Meredith, I think he's solid as a backup lineman, but not someone you want as a full-time starter. He's reliable in a pinch, but Johnson's dominance highlights the gap between a good lineman and a truly elite one. Jordan Meredith is a solid technical player who does the little things right. However, he's not the kind of guy who bullies defenders or moves people off the line. To have a strong offensive line, the Raiders need guards who can dominate and overpower their opponents. Take this play, for example. Meredith gets beat, but Jackson Paris-Johnson steps in, backs up Meredith, and keeps the quarterback clean. This play results in a 7-yard gain, but it's the kind of play that often goes unnoticed. When I watch the tape, I see Meredith losing these matchups more often than you'd like from a starting guard. Now, Meredith is valuable as a backup. He's versatile, can play both guard positions, and even center. That's great to have on the roster, but I don't think he's a long-term starter. Meanwhile, Paris-Johnson continues to shine with his awareness and quick decision-making. On this play, he steps up, handles the defensive tackle, and ensures the quarterback stays clean. It's 1st and 15, and his effort helps the team gain 7 yards. On another play, Johnson again helps Meredith out. This time, Meredith holds up okay, but Johnson's processing and awareness stand out. He recognizes the defensive line's movement and reacts instantly to help out. This kind of quick thinking is why he's so valuable. Speaking of defensive players, let's talk about Kalijah Kancey. He's a special talent and one of the top defensive tackles in the league right now. While I didn't like the hit he put on Aiden O'Connell, I've interacted with Kancey Cansey before, and he's passionate about football and extremely skilled. Coming out of Pitt, Cansey has quickly proven himself as a top player at his position. Back to the Raiders' offensive line, Parham and DJ Glaze need to improve their coordination during defensive line stunts. On one play, it's a 2-on-2 situation, and Parham does his part by passing his man off to Glaze. However, Glaze is a little slow to react, which prevents Parham from moving to the next defender in time. This delay allows number 96 to get free, and that's something the line needs to clean up. Overall, Paris Johnson's awareness and execution continue to stand out, but the rest of the line has some work to do to keep up with his level of play. On this next play, Paris Johnson shows off his incredible strength and skill again. He goes up against Greg Gaines, a 340-pound defensive tackle, and just tosses him aside. While Jordan Meredith gives a small shove to help, the majority of this is all Johnson. Watch as Johnson adjusts his hand placement, moving from inside to the backside, and then uses his left hand to push and completely dominate. It's embarrassing for the defender. This kind of power is rare even in the NFL. This level of physicality is what makes Johnson so special. He's a bully on the field, constantly driving defenders backward and putting them on the ground. The Raiders clearly knew what they were getting when they drafted him. I remember during the pre-draft process, I said the Raiders should consider using their first-round pick on Johnson. While they took Brock Bowers instead, another excellent pick, Johnson is proving to be one of the best center prospects in years. On tape, he's consistently moving defenders 5 to 8 yards off the line. It's not just his strength, it's his technique and awareness. Players like Richie Incognito or Quentin Nelson have a similar physical dominance, but Johnson's combination of power and intelligence puts him in a special tier. Here's a great example of his awareness. On this play, Johnson locks in on a linebacker Jones and completely shuts him down. But that's not all. He extends his arm to disrupt another defender, number 26, while Dylan Parham also gets a hand on him. This level of smart football is what separates great offensive linemen from good ones. That said, the Raiders still need to address the guard position. Meredith struggles too often, and while Johnson helps cover for him, the team would benefit from bringing in a more dominant guard. I think the Raiders should stick with Dylan Parham for one more year. If he doesn't improve, they can look to replace him later. For now, the priority should be finding one solid guard, and then maybe adding another if Parham doesn't take the next step. The Raiders already have a superstar at center in Paris Johnson. Colton Miller is another cornerstone of the offensive line. At 28 or 29 years old, Miller is in his prime, and he's been playing very well this season. I'm confident these two will hold down their positions for the next 5 years. Dylan Parham is still a bit of a question mark though. He's shown promise, but it's unclear if he can be a long-term starter. DJ Glaze has potential, but I'm not sold on him yet either. Tackle is a tougher position to play than guard, but I think Glaze could be a strong guard if he moved inside. We'll see how things go as the season progresses. What's interesting is that this current group of 5 linemen has only been starting together for 3 to 4 weeks, and the offensive line looks the best it has all season. They're communicating well, keeping the quarterback clean, and holding down the line. While Jordan Meredith isn't a dominant player, he's serviceable for now. Paris Johnson, however, is in a league of his own. Whether it's taking on top-tier defensive linemen like Vita Vea or Cansey one-on-one, I have no doubt Johnson can handle them. Meredith, on the other hand, struggles against elite players, which is why I think the Raiders need to focus on upgrading the guard position in the future. Overall, the Raiders' offensive line is solid, but still has room to improve. Paris Johnson is a real star though, and he's the kind of player you can build around. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. If you learned something new, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll see you next time with another video.